The funeral reception was winding down when my sister Jessica decided to make her announcement. Grandma had been gone for exactly 2 weeks, and while I was still processing the grief, Jessica had apparently been planning her victory speech. "Everyone, can I have your attention?" Jessica clinked her champagne glass with a fork, her perfectly manicured nails glinting in the afternoon light. The family gathered in Grandma's living room, the same room where we'd spent countless holidays, fell silent. I stood by the window overlooking the ocean, the same view Grandma and I had watched together every summer morning. My coffee had gone cold in my hands. "I know this is a difficult time for all of us," Jessica began, her voice dripping with false emotion. "But Grandma would want us to celebrate her memory, not dwell in sadness. And I have some news that I think she'd want me to share." I felt my stomach tighten. Something about her tone felt wrong. "Grandma left the beach house to me." Jessica paused for dramatic effect, her eyes sweeping the room before landing on me with unmistakable triumph. "Maya gets nothing." The silence that followed lasted only a heartbeat before the applause erupted. "Oh, Jessica, how wonderful." Mom rushed forward to embrace her. "Grandma always said you had such good taste. You'll take such good care of it." "She knew you deserved it, honey," Dad added, beaming with pride. "You were always so attentive to her." My Aunt Carol chimed in. "Remember how Jessica used to visit every Sunday? Such a devoted granddaughter." I stood frozen, the coffee cup trembling slightly in my grip. Visit every Sunday? Jessica had been to Grandma's house maybe 5 times in the past 2 years. But I didn't say anything. I simply smiled, a small knowing smile, and stayed silent. Jessica's eyes found mine across the room. She wanted a reaction. She needed to see me break, to watch me crumble. Instead, I took a slow sip of my cold coffee and turned back to the window. "Maya, aren't you going to say anything?" my cousin Lauren asked, her voice tinged with pity that made my skin crawl. "Congratulations, Jessica," I said quietly, not turning around. "I hope you'll be very happy here." I could practically feel Jessica's confusion. This wasn't the script she'd written in her head. She wanted tears, protests, drama. My calm acceptance seemed to unsettle her more than anger would have. "Well," Jessica recovered quickly, "I just think it's important that the house goes to someone who really appreciated Grandma's legacy. Someone who understood her values." The irony of those words nearly made me laugh. Grandma's values. The woman who'd taught me that quiet dignity outlasted loud proclamations. The woman who'd told me during one of our morning coffee sessions just 3 months ago, "Maya, some people need to learn lessons the hard way. And some people need to learn that assumptions can be dangerous." I'd thought she was talking about life in general. Now I understood. The family had migrated toward Jessica, everyone congratulating her, already making plans for summer visits to Jessica's beach house. Mom was discussing renovation ideas. Dad was offering to help with the property taxes. My uncle was suggesting Jessica rent it out during the off-season to make some extra income. I remained by the window watching the waves crash against the shore. Grandma and I had sat in this exact spot 3 days before she died. She'd been weak, her voice barely above a whisper, but her mind was sharp as ever. "You've always been patient, Maya," she'd said, squeezing my hand with surprising strength. "That's why I trust you with what matters most. Jessica thinks love is loud. But you and I know better." At the time, I thought she was just reminiscing. Being philosophical in the way elderly people often are when they sense the end approaching. I'd kissed her forehead and promised to keep visiting, even though we both knew I wouldn't get the chance. The memory was interrupted by a knock at the door. "I'll get it," I said, grateful for the excuse to leave the celebration of my apparent disinheritance. I opened the door to find a tall man in his 60s, wearing a crisp navy suit and carrying a leather briefcase. His silver hair was perfectly styled, and his eyes held the sharp, assessing look of someone who missed nothing. "Good afternoon," he said with a slight smile. "I'm looking for Maya Henderson. I'm Robert Chin, your grandmother's attorney." "That's me," I said, my heart suddenly pounding. "Please come in." The conversation in the living room didn't stop immediately. Mr. Chin had to clear his throat twice before the family noticed him standing in the doorway. "Excuse me, everyone," he said, his voice carrying an authority that cut through the chatter. "I apologize for interrupting, but I need to speak with Maya Henderson regarding some urgent estate matters." Jessica's face lit up with poorly concealed glee. "Oh, is this about Grandma's personal effects?" Maya, I'm sure you can have some of the old jewelry and maybe a few photo albums. Actually, Mr. Chin interrupted, his expression neutral but his tone firm. I'm here to discuss the property transfer. He turned to me and I saw the slightest twinkle in his eye. Maya, we need to discuss the beach house, the investment portfolio and the trust fund. There are several documents requiring your signature. The room went silent. Completely, utterly silent. I could hear the clock ticking on the mantel, the distant cry of seagulls outside, my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. Jessica's face went white. Actually white, like all the blood had drained straight to her feet. What property? She whispered, the words barely audible. Mr. Chin pulled a folder from his briefcase, his movements deliberate and professional. Mrs. Eleanor Henderson's last will and testament, revised and notarized 4 months ago, leaves her primary residence, this beach house, along with her investment portfolio valued at approximately $2.3 million, and her trust fund to her granddaughter, Maya Henderson. He paused, looking at Jessica with polite confusion. I'm sorry, were you under a different impression? But I... Jessica stammered, looking frantically between me, Mr. Chin, and our parents. He told me. I thought. What exactly did she tell you? I asked softly, speaking for the first time since Mr. Chin arrived. Jessica's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. She said I should enjoy the house. That summer. She said it would be nice to see me use it. Enjoy it, I repeated, understanding flooding through me. She invited you to visit. To use it. Not to own it. Mr. Chin nodded. Mrs. Henderson was quite specific in her instructions. She wanted to ensure the property remained in capable hands. Hands that had cared for it, maintained it, and understood its value beyond the monetary. Mom finally found her voice. Maya, you never said anything. Why didn't you tell us? I looked at my mother, the woman who'd applauded Jessica's announcement, who'd praised her for being so devoted, while I'd been the one driving 3 hours every weekend for the past 5 years to help Grandma with groceries, doctor's appointments, and simple companionship. Grandma asked me not to, I said simply. She wanted to see how things played out naturally. This is ridiculous, Jessica burst out, her shock transforming into anger. Maya probably manipulated her. Grandma was old, confused. Mrs. Henderson was evaluated by 2 independent physicians who confirmed her complete mental competency at the time of the will's revision. Mr. Chin interrupted, his voice cool. I have the documentation if you'd like to review it. She was exceptionally clear about her wishes and her reasoning. He pulled out a sealed envelope. In fact, she left letters for each of you. Maya, she instructed me to give you yours in private. But Jessica. He held out a cream-colored envelope. She wanted me to ensure you received this today. Jessica snatched the envelope with shaking hands and tore it open. Her eyes scanned the page and I watched the color drain from her face again. When she finished reading, she crumpled the letter in her fist. What does it say? Mom asked. Nothing, Jessica spat. It says nothing that matters. But I knew Grandma. I knew exactly what it said. Something about actions speaking louder than words. About how love isn't measured in Sunday visits when it's convenient, but in Tuesday afternoons when it's not. About the difference between wanting something and earning it. Mr. Chin cleared his throat. Maya, if you have time now, we should review the documents. There are several decisions that need to be made regarding the property management and the investment accounts. Of course, I said, setting down my cold coffee cup for the last time in this room as a guest. Jessica pushed past me, nearly knocking me over in her rush to leave. Mom and Dad followed her outside, their voices rising in what sounded like an argument. The rest of the family dispersed quickly, suddenly finding reasons to leave, avoiding my eyes. Only Aunt Carol paused at the door. Maya, she said quietly, I'm sorry. I should have noticed how much you did for her. I nodded, accepting the apology I wasn't sure I'd earned. Thank you. When the house was finally empty except for Mr. Chin and me, I allowed myself to breathe fully for the first time in hours. She was quite remarkable, your grandmother, Mr. Chin said as he laid out the documents on the dining table. In our final meeting, she told me she was teaching her family one last lesson. That sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one listening, learning, and earning what others only assume they deserve. I smiled, tears finally spilling down my cheeks. That sounds like her. She also said, he continued gently, that you'd probably spend the first year feeling guilty about this. She wanted me to tell you not to. You didn't take anything from anyone. You were given what you'd already earned through 5 years of Tuesday afternoons, weekend visits and morning coffee talks that no one else bothered to show up for. I signed the documents with shaking hands, each signature feeling like validation and vindication and grief all mixed together. When Mr. Chen finally left, I walked back to the window, my window now, and watched the sunset paint the ocean in shades of orange and gold. Somewhere in the house I could hear Grandma's voice, that slight laugh she'd get when she was particularly pleased with herself. Some people need to learn that assumptions can be dangerous, I whispered to the empty room. The waves crashed against the shore in response, constant and patient just like Grandma taught me to be. Jessica got her lesson. I got the beach house, the security and something more valuable than both, the knowledge that Grandma had seen me all along. And sometimes staying silent is the most powerful thing you can do.